So this video that you're going to watch today is going to talk about PPC agencies, and basically if you're asking yourself when you found this or saw the thumbnail and topic title of this video, what is it that actual PPC agencies do or PPC people do? Is it really worth the money to hire one? This is a very, very common thought process, I will tell you, as people enter in and start running Google ads for themselves. And I'll tell you right off the bat, ultimately, kind of the thought process that people go through as they're setting up their ads, and until they eventually come to the inevitable results that make them lots and lots of money, what they normally have to go through so you can save yourself some time. And I can tell you there's a hint here. PPC agencies do become of value to get to that end process. It's just a matter of when, or or you'll be in a rare situation where you kind of could defy all odds. So anyway, I could tell you whether PPC agencies or PPC people are worth the money, and whether or not you could be that one that doesn't use one ultimately. Not to say every person does have it, and evaluate for yourself if you want to skip it or not. At this particular stage, if you haven't hired one yet or don't believe in them, getting bad results from them, I'll also cover that in this video as well. What to do about it, how to decide for yourself how to move forward from this particular situation that you're in. Okay? So the very first thing on my list here is I have a short list of items I want to go through about deciphering this particular issue for yourself, as I normally do on my videos. You basically don't just have one question as to what you're going to do. So you're running Google ads. The ads don't, sometimes if you're very, very first starting out, you may think the ads just run themselves. You sign up for an account, what does Google do? They let you click a few buttons, and 10 minutes later, voila, your account is going. You're running ads. Now, making money, i.e. profit, is a whole different story. At the 8-to-1 in terms of revenue to ad spend, or 10-to-1 revenue to ad spend that you ultimately need to be sustainable, the ads finance themselves, and to run them long term, and actually be in a position to scale your ads, which is really what most people obviously want, so that they can make millions of dollars a year from this Google Ads system, which can be done if you just follow all the steps. Even if you're in a small business, like you run a small paint shop, all can be done through these Google ads. Doesn't matter if you're a local business, national business. I've seen it all done. Service, non-service, B2B, B2C, doesn't matter. You go through the general process of what it takes to make it work, even though every business is obviously uniquely different in its own way. You will be one of those people that do it, and the people who try to take shortcuts for the most part are going to be the ones that crash and burn and you never hear about or see again. 9 out of 10 people, I'll tell you right off the bat, that do run ads starting out, as I've said on other videos, they don't make it work. They try it, they're a flash in the pan. They didn't put much work into it, or they were just ignorant as to what it actually takes to make the ads work. They're gone. And one of the good things about being the ones that make millions of dollars from their ads, most of your competition don't think they'll work, because they're going to be the one of the 9 out of the 10 who tried it for 2, 3, 4 months. They're gone. You never hear from them again. They don't even try. They're the worst. They are their own worst enemies as it comes to being your competition and try to take away some of your thunder. So anyway, but as you're going into it, as I said, you may think, the ads run themselves. You have to worry about it. You don't even think about an ad manager to start with, right? You probably are there already. And then you realize, okay, these ads aren't really making money. Maybe you shut them off. Then maybe you think, well, I need someone to help me with this. And then Google calls you. They may try to convince you to start them up again, or just to give you some advice to put them on the right track. They'll say they'll follow up with you once a month. If you have a low ad spend, just like several thousand a month or in that range, they will provide very little support to you. Probably a third-party outsourced contractor, potentially in another country like Europe, is what you're getting. Just to be, so that you didn't, so in case you didn't, that's what happens. You get better support the more you spend. You don't really get, in my opinion, good support until you're at, $200K a month in terms of what a specialized ad agency like ours would provide. So you should know that going in. Just relying on the Google support suggestions Not to say you can't, you make up your own mind, but I wish it was that easy to make millions of dollars a year of just getting a phone call 15 minutes a month, agreeing to click, 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 you're done, hang up the phone, and then to get the advice for free. There would be no ad agencies if that was the case. So you should, if it seems a little too good to be true, it is. You'll obviously never get to 200 grand a month if you never make money initially. No, and by the way, nobody does that spends even 50 grand a month or whatever on ads. Starts out their day one. They start at a small position like you if you're starting out, $1,000 a month or whatever, and they build it up because they're working, and they funnel 10, 20, 30% of their profit back into it, and 5 years later they're at 30 grand or 50 grand a month and they're killing it. And so anyway, they try the ad person at Google, say, oh, it's free, it's Google, of course they're going to know, and then they find out otherwise. Then they're like, okay, maybe I need an agency because I've heard of this before. They maybe have an agency for their business already, and that agency is what I call a generalized marketing agency. They may do digital marketing and specialize in that, but for the most part, they are not good enough to outdo somebody who all they do is eat, breathe, sleep, day in and day out, just PPC, like we do. I'm not just saying that to be self-serving here. You could ask around. There's lots of and they're becoming more prevalent all the time because ultimately PPC is a war and you're competing against other people. Who do you think you're going to win against? Somebody who's going to win? The person who has somebody that manages millions of dollars of ad spend on a regular basis and knows all the tricks, or the person who hires a generalized agency, they just do a little bit of it on the side. Even if they say they have a specialized person, they generally don't, or that person does very little of that. It might just be a portion of their time. Or if you're a really, really big agency, then maybe they have a dedicated person. But for the most part, the smaller agencies, most of them that you see, they don't have a full-time person doing it. And it really does take a full-time person to keep up on all the updates, be able to test things on other accounts to know what strategies work and what doesn't, because there's hundreds of different individual configurations of the account. And so maybe you have said to your PPC, or your marketing agency said to you, hey, you're open to it now. We can help you with your PPC ads. We can get you a better return. You try them out. Does it, do what you want it to do? And then maybe you come to, maybe you don't. Not everybody gets there. They figure out that they had to hire a specialized PPC, a specialist or an agency. And so your decision really is between doing it yourself, listening to a Google rep, hiring a generalized agency, or hiring a specialized agency. And beyond that, going on to number 2 here, you could hire an actual agency, i.e. not just a one-man show, but there's other specialists there like designers, programmers, people that can set up trackings, copywriters, people that can design landing pages, so on and so forth like we do. Or there's PPC Specialists, which is basically like a consultant or a sole guy who all he does is like PPC, or her, of course. Don't want to say there isn't any women doing this. It's very, very rare, and there should be more, but whatever. So your decision is actually doing it yourself, using Google Rep, generalized agency, PPC agency, specialized, and a PPC consultant or specialist that's a sole man show or whatever. And there's your decision. So in general, most of the time, if you're in a competitive space, it's going to at least take to get to one of these 2 choices in order to make it work, and they'll go through the cycle as I mentioned before. But not only that, when they get to the PPC agency, they'll try an agency out. 9 out of 10 of the specialized PPC agencies aren't very good. Especially the ones, as I made a video on this, $500 a month PPC agencies. I'm not going to name any names, but for the most part, they're a complete waste of time, because you're competing against people that have agencies that are getting paid $2, $3, $4, $5 grand a month, and then they're just stomping them out. And they can't, it's no blame to them. They know you want to hear cheap, so they give you cheap, and then they just do very little work, and they won't refuse your money, and that's all they're good at selling, if you will. So they take and you get what you get. So then they'll try an agency or 2, say, agencies don't work. And then maybe you're here now because you're wondering if they're worth the money. And then there are the agencies that work. Usually they'll charge several $1,000s a month. And a lot of people they almost fall over and faint when they hear that. And that might be, might be only spending $3,000 a month now on your ad spend, and to pay $3,000 a month for management. I tell people all the time, you could pay 2 cents for management and hire some guy from some place you've never heard of, but it's not about the price, it's whether it works. A good person can make it, enough, even just spending $3,000 a month and paying them $3,000 to cover the profit you make will easily be cover the management fee and still be net positive. In other words, all your costs are covered, the management fee is still covered, and then you're in a position to scale that account to $50,000 a month. It's not about what short-term happens, it's about what long-term what happens. So you should always look at it like that. And if you are not trying to get too huge, at the same time, it generally, even if you stay at the several $1,000s a month ad budget range per month, you could still generally, if the agency is really, really good in that general $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month price range, you could still justify that cost. A lot of people don't know that because they don't actually go do a cost-benefit analysis where they compare what their customer value is worth and what the cost of the agency is and their overhead and cost of goods or services. You should do all that math and figure out and see for yourself, which we do for all our clients, by the way, before we start on anything, because we don't want to waste our time or their time. If the math doesn't pencil out, then why do it? Whereas most of these agencies will say, yeah, you'll get great results. Well, how much results am I going to get? Oh, we'll just have to see. Nobody can tell for sure. Nothing's guaranteed. And then you get into it 6 months later, you may be getting some sales, but you're scratching your head saying, am I making a profit here? Whereas you could have did all that math up front for yourself. But if you did find the PPC agency that works, knew how to estimate your results, knew how to track those results, which is definitely possible, and you tried them out for 6 months and they got you close to your goal already, and if you weren't quite there, it looks like you're going to hit your goal, then you're going to be finally in the contention, probably in the top 10-20% of people making money or going to make money in your space long term, which only 10 or 20% usually do because the price of the clicks have went way up. And Google has designed things so only the top 10 or 20% make money, that you're now in that position to do it. And so, because it can't get much better than that. You have an agency, all they do is this. You've invested a proper price in to do it. Other people aren't willing to. They think it's too expensive. They haven't done that math I talked to you about. So on and so forth. And then they scale up their spend, and eventually they're making 80% of the money, if you will. The top 20% make 80% of the profit, just simply speaking. So you've got to decide when you go into this, do I want to be that or do I, and if you don't, my recommendation to you is to not mess with it, do something else. But PPC is becoming less and less kind of optional. I mean, B2B would be like kind of the only case. If anything else, you're pretty much forced to do it at some point because it gets more and more prevalent every year. So you can run, but you can't hide eventually. But PPC Specialists, sometimes a person could get you so far along starting out, but you have that as an option. Normally, PPC Specialists, it takes a team to get results. Like I was mentioning a little bit before, we have it because it's required to get guaranteed results, or we guarantee our clients results. We guarantee certain numbers they need out of their campaign starting out. We don't take fees unless we do. We're the only agency that does this, but we know we got to have a landing page and a landing page designer who knows how to make landing pages and know how to set up tracking through Google Analytics. We got to know how to do ad copywriting that actually works. We got to know how to do all these individual things. And so not one person can do excellent everything. And even if they could, it takes time to do all the little pieces. You got to make sure there's a whole funnel that needs to be optimized. In terms of and banner ads and follow-up remarketing ads to get the full value out of your clicks. And somebody who knows how to copyright probably can't design. They can maybe direct a designer, but you get my point. And so this person isn't going to have all these other, they're not a superhero, they don't have all these other things. Plus it takes a lot of times hundreds of hours to get results. So that PPC specialists don't have hundreds of hours. And if they did have hundreds of hours to work on your thing, it would be so expensive, the ROI would probably wouldn't be there. Whereas if you have a strategist who knows how to drive a team of people who then themselves aren't paid $200,000 a year and get you the 100 hours of work that you need, then you finally got the amalgamation to make things work. That's kind of how we're set up here, just so that you know, but I'm not trying to this is not a sales pitch. But anyway, what is it that these, if you have an agency, or what do these consultants do? What does the general marketing agency that offers PPC on the side do that makes it worth the money? What are the main key benefits for you, the consumer, so you know that you for sure want this? Assuming you've got somebody who actually can do it the right way, and they are out there. One of the things is Google and the other PPC platforms, Facebook ads, so on and so forth, they have constant platform changes. So Google changes something, the way that keyword matching just just changed, every month now almost, and it's accelerating the number of changes that Google is making. That, what works today won't potentially be what works next year. And, they make a big change like the keyword match types like they just did. A campaign could have been profitable just fine, and now it's not. And the ads may have to be updated. The product feeds on a shopping campaign, if you're running them, will have to be updated. Not only do you have to stay on top of these updates Google has all the time, you have to read them, you have to decipher them, and then you have to go apply these changes. The firm stays on top of that for you. If you're running a business, you don't have somebody there that you trust. Obviously, it's hard to just have the guy sweeping the floor do this stuff for you. Practically speaking, you need it and want it. And if you plan on making millions of dollars a year from these ads long term, which you may not have it up front, you have to realize it's a build-up. And, Rome is not built in a day. You need somebody to manage this for you, to maintain the process all the way up, or just in general. And then the constant ad disapprovals. Google's filter for what they will allow in your advertising constantly changes too. Recently they came out with a restriction for like the credit and housing space. You can't say certain things in your ad, so on and so forth, and your ads may get disapproved. Or you have a trademark issue in an ad. There's a lot of different things that can get an ad disapproved, and a lot of times it's not just one ad, but all your ads will get disapproved at once. And then you have to go and react to that the same day, because if you don't, you're automatically losing money, because the ads predictably, made money, and that's why you're running them, because you're tracking and you know that you're getting their numbers, and therefore every day you're down, you're technically losing. It's a lost opportunity, you're lost money. You got operations that you got to keep going, and which magnifies that effect. But you got to go and notice that they're down. Google sends you an email, but as quickly as possible, you want to notice they're down and deal with it. And an agency will have usually an inside track with support. You'll get a better treatment. Your support that you get through Google will be better the more that you spend. And if you're not spending very much, you're working with an agency that greatly can help. They can do things like your product feed on a shopping campaign or a dynamic remarketing ad campaign. Those are highly technical. You need somebody highly technical and understands more than just working on one, how to maintain those, that they're constantly getting disapprovals. And along with that, I have it in my list here, but if you're running an e-commerce company, there's certain things that go in stock and out of stock. You need someone to stop your ads when things are out of stock, so you're not throwing your money away on ads that are out of stock, and then bring things back online. When you're running search ads, that's important. With shopping, it does it kind of automatically, but if you run search ads, you need somebody doing that. For sure. Otherwise, that's the kind of the difference between the guy that makes money and the guy that does it, is being attentive to those small little things. And there's 100+ little things like that it's death by 1,000 cuts, if you will, if you don't have somebody watching your ads on a regular basis. I'm just going through and so you understand the kind of things, why you should realize, even if an ad manager is $3,000 a month, why you can't, this is not something where you cut your money at, or cut your expenses at. Even if you're making money, it's tempting, I could just have that $3,000 back if I just let them go and let it ride for a while. You're playing with fire, and eventually it's going to come off the tracks. And if Google just made a big update within a month of doing that, you could have lost, your 2 years of what you paid for to build things up in a month, potentially. I don't want to say it's going to happen, obviously, every time or scare you, but this isn't a scare pitch either. But, this stuff is possible. Why get greedy and jeopardize your results just to save that money when really that ad manager could be paid to to get you more results. And so it doesn't even make any sense to try to save money along those lines, assuming you're working with the right firm, which should be getting you results that are going up and to the right on a quarterly basis moving forward. If they're not, then you just hire a different agency. Speed of execution. So as mentioned before, if you have an agency versus a specialist, you have a whole staff that can do things. But like I said before, it takes hundreds of hours to get good results on a campaign. Me, myself, when we have a new client coming in, it takes us 60 days just to prep work of landing pages, ads, so on and so forth, keyword research. We're spending close to 200 hours doing all that, just so that when we flip on the ads, it's going to work efficiently enough so that in 90 days, we're in the black already. And whereas, the average person spending 15 minutes, which is the difference between, again, guys that make money and the guys that don't. What you're always seeking to do is just do more than everybody else is willing to do, and done in an educated way, obviously. But if you do that, then you're going to get a higher return than the average person, which therefore you're paying the same or less cost than everybody else for the same customers, and then therefore you can afford the traffic and nobody else can, and you're actually getting the 8-to-1 return nobody else is. And it's going to be even more so like that in the future. So you might as well get on top of it now if you are advertising or want to make this work. It's going to get more expensive, more competitive as time goes on, even though it significantly is right now. Alrighty, so they can get things done. If it takes 200 hours to build up a search campaign with landing pages and all that works, you don't have time to do that, for one. And two, if you have a single person doing it and have other clients, that might take forever, basically. And then as you go through things, I want to say, to stay on top of and be able to scale your results, if that was your goal, you're going to be spending 20, 30, 40 hours a month on this. And the consultant probably isn't going to spend that time. And some months, you're going to be forced to spend 100 hours. So the staff can, you have leverage, in other words, through this staff that already knows how to deal with stuff. By looking at their other clients, it can execute things fast, and they're going to be able to act like you having 5 people in your own office doing this stuff that was all specialized in Google Ads. And when something goes wrong, you know how to immediately deal with it and have the leverage so that instead of having a 2-week downtime, you can have literally a day of downtime or 2 days of downtime. If you have malware affecting your site, you get your ads disapproved. Within 48 hours, they can help consult you on getting your ads back online instead of taking 2 weeks, which the profit you'll lose in those 2 weeks will cover the cost of the ad manager, for the whole year. So realistically speaking, once you get scaled up, it doesn't make any sense not to have an ad manager at your side, ad firm at your side. The other thing is just engineering the results, which is the big one. Everybody typically, they don't think about these other things, which is, unless you've hired an ad agency for a long time, dealt with Google for a long time, the engineering of the results, you got to be able to figure out what is it going to take to do better. Again, a lot of it, like I said, is just doing more than everybody else, but you still have to know what to do. And that comes by working on, have worked on in terms of being a PPC strategist, hundreds of campaigns, tested every which way of things out, already know what works going in, and you can identify the few things that are going to work for your business based upon what business that they've worked on before that's either identically the same or very close to it because they worked on a bunch of different campaigns and they've tested everything. So before you go in, you really have tens of millions of dollars worth of research built right into your campaign through all that mechanism. And they could figure out what it takes. They could use their staff to make sure that you physically get more work done than anybody else because you're paying them a proper rate instead of the $500 a month that you're expecting people to get results on, which they know they can't get results on, and therefore they don't tell you, but they do very little work, and then nobody wins. You pay the proper amount, you crush everybody, and you're making 10 times as much money as you would if hiring a cheap guy anyway. It makes that much difference. So that's it. And then of course the last thing is, and I've already touched on this before, the de-engineering of unstable results. A lot of times clients, it's very helpful just to be able to pick up the phone and ask, hey, why is our sales down the last week or last 3 days? And get immediate answer from somebody who manages dozens of accounts. They can tell you if it's something from Google or it's something from your campaign. They can dig down and see if it's a new competitor. They can see if your ads are whatever. your product feed is screwed up. They can quickly diagnose it and immediately act with the leverage of the staff that they have, so you have a downtime of a couple days if there is something wrong. But more so than that, they're already looking at your campaigns and they have software to monitor when they see an anomaly in your results. So they're probably going to be on top of it. Since you're hiring a specialist, that's all they're supposed to be doing is maintaining your results before you even need them, right? And they're sending you an email saying that we saw something, we dealt with it, just letting you know we took care of it. So in case you were curious at any point and you've seen that happen, we already took care of it, or at least that's what they should be doing. But if you do notice something or you're just unsure about it, it's nice to be able to just call somebody up and say, what's wrong? Yeah, this is what the issue is. Because if you have deal with the Google rep, you don't get that. You deal with the support, you don't get that. You're not going to get an answer about why your strategy doesn't work through your support. They may tell you a little bit about why an ad disapproval happened, just so that you know. And you're not going to get that through Facebook's ad support or anything else, or any of these other PPC networks. That they're not set up that way unless you're spending like $200,000 a month. Then you will get good support through Google, through these other ad networks, just letting you know kind of how the system works. Again, better support the more you spend. And so things are so volatile. There's so many changes. There's competitors that are in and out of a market. Those competitors are losing money but willing to spend more just to push you out. And they have budget to spend. And therefore that could screw your numbers up. And just knowing when to hold strong and not panic, and when to panic and do something. Because if you panic, then your results, instead of being bad 2 weeks, it could be bad for 3 months, because any changes you make affects the algorithm, and then you realize you didn't have to make that change and then change it back. You've really screwed up what could have been a minor problem, and you're able to sleep a little better at night. So, but in general, the overall big thing that I always what I say to clients, potential clients when they come in, results takes lots of time. This is not something that just we're able to do for you in an hour a month. There's a reason why it costs several thousand a month, because we're working on it 50 hours. We have lots of data entry people that can build campaigns on scale and so forth. So 50 to 100 hours a month through our team to get you the results that you're getting. But with that, what you're getting is what more than anybody else is doing, which if you're not on top of number one in your market now, you will be just through the power of doing more. Like Elon Musk has said before, if you're starting a business, you just work twice the amount of hours than your competition is, eventually you're going to beat them. It's just a matter of when. Well, this is the same exact thing. You run more ads, more remarketing ads. You write an ad for every single keyword. You're doing more keyword research to find the gym keywords that only get searched 10 times a month. But if you had a specialized ad for it, you would do that much better by executing that. Or you have a new, the process for a good ad manager to get results to go up in the right is easy, because there's all these strategies and it never stops. There's always something else that can be done. And whatever is done, you can use the power of your data to walk out the 80% of what did not deliver the returns that you were looking for, so that the campaigns do make the ROI that you're looking for, and then through the power of being able to execute more strategies, also on different ad platforms, and always picking the low-hanging fruit in your niche, they are going to be able to walk your results up, and knowing what those strategies that work ahead of time before they've done them for you. It's just really it's a matter of process getting you those results, making the millions of dollars a year that you want. As long as you're patient and you recognize going in that results take time, the results are there. It's just an investment long term to get a little bit better results than you had the last quarter, and again and again and again. Several years down the line, you're spending $50,000 a month and you're doing $3-4 million a year in sales, because you've actually set that mechanism up for yourself and went through it. And you went through it with somebody who's done this many, many times, and you trust and you let them do what they need to do with their resources, with their knowledge. So that explains, are they worth money, what you're actually getting. There's a lot more involved in this process than a lot of people realize, and you could be the one that skips a lot of this heartache for yourself and just go directly for the stuff that actually works, which is the PPC agency that specializes and doesn't charge $500 a month typically, or if you hire specialist, or consultant, that mainly that's to consult you or your internal person doing it. For the most part, you can do it internal. You can do it yourself still, like I said at the very beginning of this video, if you are willing to dedicate hundreds of hours to studying the craft and reading books like I have published on how this stuff works. And, instead of trying, you don't have enough money to trial and error everything that works. You have to study what works from other people who then what you don't know now, actually does know their stuff and isn't going to give you crappy information. Or you could just hire the agency. Yes, kind of sucks paying that amount of money, but at least you don't have to deal with the stuff. And eventually that fee that you're paying is really nothing what you're making once you see things out a little ways down the road. It's just a little painful initially to get to accept it, but shortly after that, that fee you're paying really is irrelevant if you're trying to grow your business. But you certainly can also learn. It's just the same process that I had to go through, and having said, and to do that for yourself to get reasonable enough results. But at the same time, you'll never really get, the 15 years of experience just reading a few books. You definitely can be profitable, but if you want to totally blow everybody away in your niche, which again, there's only so many winners, then you just hire the guy who already has done this many, many times before and is just executing what he already knows. So hopefully that helps you decide if you want to hire a PPC agency / specialist and if they're worth the money. I have a lot of other videos just like this about making money with PPC on my channel. Go ahead and subscribe. I really encourage you to do that. And so you can learn yourself what's involved in this process and or be just knowledgeable so that when your agency you do hire, you know how to tell, that they're doing their job, which is always required, usually to know the agency is doing a good job to a degree for you long term, or at least that you got someone that will work for you in the sales negotiation process. If you do have questions about hiring a particular agency, what's involved, what you should be looking at, some general advice, you can leave a comment down below. You could also go to GarrettTPC.com. And I have a money-making PPC strategy blog there where I go through step-by-step on how to set up some of these campaigns for yourself. So if you are looking to do it yourself, you could see the process that it takes to get better results in 90+% of different niches, because these are the strategies 90% of the people that do ads aren't willing to do, even other agencies. So if you do those strategies at least to that level and want to do that and want to know how it's done and the place to get that information, that you can find that on GarrettTPC.com. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and hope that helped you make your decision or understand PPC agency world, the PPC agency world, what is out there, and is it worth money? Is it worth your time? And ultimately, how to decipher the people that are worth the time and money that you're willing to pay versus not.